Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of Spotlight. Today in the studio we have multi-instrumentalist, music producer, educator and founder of Academy of Music Technology and guest lecturer here at Emendy Multimedia Technology Institute, Emille Hoogenhout. Welcome to the studio, Emille.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Right, so Emille is an Ableton certified trainer and was the only African selected to attend the Red Bull Music Academy in Spain in 2011. Emille has been a music teacher for the past 15 years and has helped many students receive accredited Royal Schools and Trinity distinctions all around the world. Emille composes and performs music under the alias Behr, that's B-E-H-R, and has played extensively at various electronic music festivals. So, Emille, tell us a bit more about yourself for the people that don't know you yet.
Okay, cool. I love making music. Everything that I've done thus far in my career or growing up kind of stems from being influenced by my mom. My mom is a choir conductor for the Wits University Choir, and I remember growing up with her basically schlepping me to all different performances and musical engagements, and through that I was influenced by, kind of her work. And, through that, it was very interesting to kind of get into various styles of music. I started out more as a instrumentalist, playing fretless bass and drums and guitar, played for various bands and also sessioned for a whole bunch of bands as well. So kind of got into studying music more privately, and then worked, at a bunch of institutions and stuff as well. Played for Lyra and Tasha Baxter, a whole bunch of other artists, and then eventually got to a point where, being a session musician kind of, got to a point of saturation for me. I kind of started falling, not as like head over heels for like looking at it as a day job, as opposed to like, doing something that kind of, stems from, personal expression. So the session stuff was amazing though. Like I got to meet some amazing musicians, got to play on some really amazing stages. I mean, one of the highlights of my sessioning career was, playing the Cape Town Jazz Festival with RJ Benjamin and with Lyra. And I mean, like, sharing a stage with like musical royalty basically. And, but there was always this kind of irking feeling that I wanted to go into like, go on stages and perform my own music and also pursue more interesting prospects, in a creative sense. So got into music production because I was always like behind an instrument, like in studio. So I was working with Jazzworks quite extensively. That's one of the studios in Randburg. And I always found myself like wondering what this guy behind the computer is doing, chopping up stuff and like kind of mixing stuff. And I was always kind of interested in that process. So I started getting my own workstation going, started getting into electronic music production, and then, kind of started in Cubase and stuff, and then found Ableton. And then that's where, being an instrumentalist and producer kind of met, perfectly. So, and I was like super excited. So that was kind of the history from there,
Yeah, I saw you're working now on the most legendary projects and you're touring the world. So tell us a bit more about that, what your plans are for the future and how you want to change the world.
I would love to tour the world. I have been traveling a bit, but quite recently I did an episode of African Voices with CNN, which was like really remarkable because I was involved in a project in Kenya a few years ago. It was about 3 years ago, called Santuri Safari. So the idea of Santuri Safari was a whole bunch of different musicians, both traditional and both electronic musicians, met up, at this space in Nairobi to write music together. But at the same time, I thought, while I'm here, I really got into sampling quite extensively a few years ago. I met up with these amazing traditional musicians and thought, like, I might as well sample these instruments and create Ableton packs from them that other music producers could actually learn from these instruments, and also hear the story behind, like, how these instruments are made. but also access these instruments for other people's personal productions. So so I multi-sample recorded these instruments so that people can compose with them. So it's not musical phrases that I would take, because obviously I feel very strongly about like royalties and so on, you know, and I wanted to just grab the essence of the instruments so that, you know, and it's really interesting because I also use, like, within the Ableton platform, once people download the instruments, there's an entire kind of description of the person that actually plays this instrument, how the instrument was made, the history of the instruments, and also like clickable links inside the actual application itself to find and navigate like to these various resources on the internet, you know. So it was a really cool like you know match, you know. So I'm getting constantly like emails from people from around the world, you know, like people from like Asia, people from Europe and so on, just saying like, I wrote this amazing music, listen to it, like I used the instruments that you recorded. And it was just really exciting to kind of see that, you know. And now obviously with this project with CNN, I did something quite similar, but we traveled to Kisumu, so that is outside of Kenya. And it's it's outside of Nairobi, should I say. And it was really cool because it's much more rural. I met up with Olith, is one of the instrumentalists that I worked with, and he is a carpenter by trade. So his family basically depend on him like making money as a carpenter. So his dream of being a musician, you know, for a very long time was kind of you know, set back because he needed to provide for his family. But the interesting thing is him being a carpenter and acquiring those skills as a carpenter, he's now using those skills to actually make instruments, you know. So it's such a cool, like, you know, understanding of like the effort that he puts in as a carpenter to make his instruments. I can now take that, sample it, and then make an electronic instrument out of that could obviously like bring music production to the forefront. So you'll use the essence of those instruments, but then be able to manipulate them in ways that you can't in the real world. So it's like I'm kind of like just, you know, carrying the torch in like a different direction, I guess. But this is really cool. It's really, really cool.
This is just so fascinating. So what does the term EDM mean to you? Because a lot of people don't really understand exactly what it is.
I guess like EDM is obviously electronic dance music. The thing is, like, you know, when I found, you know, my relationship with music production and, you know, electronic music production in that matter kind of stems more from being an instrumentalist as opposed to just getting into electronic music per se. But, I mean, I love all different types of music. I would never ever say that, you know, I dislike a style of music. I feel like the moment somebody actually makes claims like that, they haven't actually explored that genre enough. You know, the world is extremely vast, and everyone that kind of like creates or like classifies their music in a specific genre would have influences from various sources, you know, and it all stems from where you grew up, you know, who your friends are and what they listen to, you know, like what your dad used to listen to when you grew up, you know, all these things kind of filter into your frame of reference, and that's all it is. So for me, electronic dance music really can be anything you make of it, you know. I see a lot of like traditional African music now being incorporated in like house music production, that type of stuff. And, you know, especially abroad, like a lot of these clubs, I mean, I was in Berlin a few years ago, and it was really amazing to actually go to these clubs, and like normally you're expecting like just hard-hitting techno to like blow your face off. And I went to like a daytime festival, and they were like playing traditional like you know, electronic music infused with like African music, you know, and it's an ever-growing thing. So the whole world is just like cross-pollinating itself, you know, and like creating new exciting things, you know. So I dislike the idea of kind of like specifying genres. It seems futile and pointless to me. So
that makes a lot of sense.
You know.
So you're also a performer, and this show is all about giving you guys out there some practical advice that you can use. So walk us through how you usually prepare before you do a show and sort of, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what it is that you're preparing for. So you get different types of venues, different types of setups. You need to be very well versed in, you know, the choices that you make in terms of the gear that you use. So, for example, one of the last performances that I had was at the Bioscope, which is a theater, like an independent theater in Maboneng. So we actually had to perform with modular synthesizers, you know, over a silent film. So I decided to use Microcosmos, which is like a very inspirational film about, like, you know, the various interesting lives that insects and various like small, you know, creatures like lead. So I kind of took the approach of like using a looping station. So I was using my 2880 Electro Harmonics looper to record an instrument that I created especially for that performance. So I took a whole bunch of springs and I used like a flat piece of metal, and I just created this music concrete. That's what they kind of call it. Like, and I used that with my looper. So I would play rhythms and record it, and then, you know, take it in that direction. So that's obviously like very abstract. But in terms of like Ableton, for example, when I played my last set, like when I was in Nairobi, yeah, I kind of incorporated, you know, both the live element and also pre-recorded arrangements, you know, so that you can actually fall back on things that you produce and that you're comfortable with, you know, in terms of transitions and so on, but also have elements of spontaneity that can impress and also like get people interested, because no one wants to see an electronic musician like look like they're checking their phone or checking their laptop, you know, like busy working on their emails. They want some kind of performance, you know. So at the end of the day, like, know your tools well enough to kind of create that spontaneity. I guess that's what I can, you know, set, you know, kind of forward, you know, put forward is just always bring something interesting to the table. So make your live sets malleable enough to take it in any direction. Like, for example, when I'm performing with my Ableton Push, I also have like my Korg Volcas set up. They receive MIDI, but I could also do looping. So in certain parts of my tracks, let's say I played my entire arrangement of a piece of music from the beginning to the end, and that could be vamping at the end, so just like looping. Then I've got some time to actually improvise, you know, and that's what people enjoy the most, is like while people are dancing to your track, then all of a sudden take it in another direction, improvise over it, and when you're ready, or when, you know, it's time to move on to the next track, then you can kind of, you know, set the mood and just go into it. So, but I mean, you know, the whole setup is so vast. It needs to be vast for everyone to like just you know, try new things. You know, try and like throw yourself off. You know, do interesting stuff to kind of inspire yourself. You know, don't kind of follow suit. You know,
most definitely. This is so fascinating, guys. If you aren't taking notes, get your notepad ready, and please do. This is like very valuable stuff. So another thing, for people who want to go into the industry, would you say that it's, would you advise them to go into the music industry and start a career in music?
I think that you need to develop a very thick skin. I think you also need to be as malleable and versatile with what it is that you do. Don't try and put yourself in a specific box and think that that is what you represent. Always be open to meet new people, always be open to collaborate with people, and push boundaries where you can, you know. So try different projects. That's why, like, you know, just on a whim, you know, when I became a certified trainer, all these other like opportunities came about, you know. Coming from music education previously, I mean, I was a music teacher at St. Stithians College for a number of years, teaching drums and music theory and so on. But the moment I became an Ableton certified trainer, there was something very special that really happened. Is like I got all these invitations to do workshops and work with different types of people that I normally wouldn't work with, or that I didn't even fathom, you know. I think that's it. And then just being open-minded enough to say, you know what, I don't know whether this is going to work out, but I'm just going to try it, you know?
Yeah. And yeah, you've been an educator for over 15 years now. So all of these different programs, I know there's so many different programs. Would you recommend people to actually go and do these programs, and you know, will it give them good results and so on, as opposed to trying and figuring it out on the internet? What would you say? What's the best approach?
I think it really depends on the relationship that you have with your tutor. So some people are very quick to pick up information off the internet. If you know where to look, you can find very valuable information. If you don't know where to look, then you're going to find like snippets of information, and your understanding of something would be very fragmented. So you obviously need to understand that. You know, that's one aspect of it. But having a very close relationship with somebody that you learn from, and that doesn't have to be an educator per se. It could be your friend. It could be somebody that you look up to, a mentor, a musical mentor. But at the end of the day, these are all tools. You know, that's what it is. Music production and video editing and all these things are tools that you acquire, and you acquire the skills to actually like refine what it is that you're trying to express. But at the end of the day, you get some people like busking on the side of the road with like a guitar with 3 strings, and they can like make it work, and it sounds phenomenal. And you could put somebody else in like $1 million studio, and they can't do anything, because you need to allow yourself and your creativity to like run wild, and you need to be able to take risks. I think that's the most important thing, is like, you know, don't try and follow suit what other people are setting forward. You know, try and take risks and push yourself out of that comfort zone, you know.
Yeah, I guess your passion has to be able to pay the bills if you want to continue doing it. So
absolutely, absolutely.
You know, yeah, just speaking for myself here, but I did a lot of programs, you know, throughout the 3 years that I studied at Emendy, and it's really helped me get my sound refined and get my brand out there, and everything else was just much easier, you know.
Absolutely.
So, last piece of advice to everybody out there: what would you say to that guy that's standing there and he wants to be the next biggest thing?
Yeah, I would say that, you know, a person would probably have a very defined idea as to what it is that they want and where they want to be in their career. And when you get to that point, it's probably not going to be what you want anymore, you know. So being open enough to explore other opportunities, and to be open enough to actually like acquire as many different types of skills. I mean, a very interesting side note was like getting into like designing 3D printing now. Like my sister and I are getting into like manufacturing you know, 3D prints, because I've been designing synthesizers now with my cousin. So my cousin and I work with the electronics side of things, and we actually build PCBs and design PCBs. And we're getting into like building modular synthesizers.
So what is a synthesizer to the
So basically, if you open up any piece of electronics, like if you're brave enough to unscrew your laptop and like open that thing up and not spill anything on it, you'll see a whole bunch of microchips and chips and like resistors and capacitors and all these weird things, and you'll see like little lines. Those are traces on a PCB, which is a printed circuit board. So my cousin and I are now designing synthesizers from scratch, where we would actually start with a phase of like breadboarding and building these things. And I mean, this is a side note from like music, but in actual fact, like it's a level of creativity that kind of ties into my understanding of music synthesis, you know. So this is just another offshoot of you know, trying something new, and you know, being brave enough, or trying at least, to do it, you know. And the thing is, it's frustrating. It's super frustrating, but at the same time, when it starts working, it's like, wow, you know, just keep on trucking, you know. So what I could say is like for people out there is just like keep on pushing, but push in different directions. Don't put yourself in a box, you know. You're more than that.
Emille, it's been fascinating talking to you.
Awesome.
So how can people get hold of you?
Wow, you can find me on Facebook. My Facebook alias is Emille Behr, so Behr. You could also get hold of me on my website, emillehoogenhout.com. Yeah, and I'll be here at Emendy trying to like keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool, man.
Cool. Thank you so much
Awesome,
for
man.
coming through. We appreciate it so much. It was so fascinating. Guys, if you want to see more of these episodes, please go and check out the description below and also get our ebook. Remember, we make these videos to enhance your success, so please go and share them as well and press the like button if you like them, or dislike if you dislike them, and preferably not. And as always, thanks for watching.